Okay, so now everybody should recognize on number 19, there is a single square term. All right, so you can solve it by taking the square roots. So we want to add 20 to both sides. So we ended up with x minus 5 squared equals 60. Anybody have any issues with that? Now we take the square root. And now I really want you to not think so much about the square root of 60. Everybody should be able to tell me the square root of 60 is what? Plus or minus 2 radical 15. Then I move the 5 over, so I end up with x equals what? 2 radical 15. All right, remember, all I do is go back and just change the numbers up a little bit. That's it. Anybody have any questions with number 19? All right, let's take a look at 20. Now, number 20, are there any factors of 100 that can make 20?
10.
Yeah, so we can just solve it by what? Basic factoring. All right, so here we go. X. What are the factors of 100 that make 20? 10 and 10. All right. So minus 10 and minus 10. So x is equal to what? 10. Remember, this is actually called a double root. Any questions with this? Yeah.
Would it be wrong if you just said 10?
No, I'm just telling you. All right, there's supposed to be how many solutions? 2 solutions. There's always supposed to be 2 solutions for a quadratic. All right, yes. Where do you see a minus 10?
No, is it plus or minus?
I'm asking you a question. Where is it a negative 10? Where do you see that? So both answers are positive 10. There are no negatives. That's what I'm trying to show you. You with me? You're not automatically just to put down plus or minus just because you only see one solution. All right, that's why I said there is a double root. If you set both x minus 10 equal to 0 and x minus 10 equals 0, you get the same answer, 10. Right? Okay, here we go, 21. All right, now in my opinion on 21, obviously it does not factor. Some kids do not like completing the square, so they never do completing the square, they just do quadratic formula. But I am telling you, if the leading coefficient is a 1, and this middle term is even, it's easy to just complete the square. All right, it's much easier to just do it by completing the square. All right, so to complete the square, you move the 1 over. So x squared minus 6x equals 1. To complete the square, we do what? Half and square. So what does that become?
Plus 9.
Plus 9. Now, what is x squared minus 6x plus 9 factor to? X minus 3 squared equals what? 10. Now I can do what? Take the square root of both. So x minus 3 equals what? What is it? Plus or minus? Plus or minus what? Radical 10. And then finally, you just do what? Add the 3. So x equals 3 plus or minus radical 10.
You could do the other way, because I just did that, but I didn't get that answer.
The quadratic formula.
Yeah, I did that.
So we have time. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. 6 plus or minus the square root 36 minus 4 times 1 times 1.
Yeah, no, the other one's negative.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. -1. C is -1. Thank you. And then it's 2. So now x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 40 over 2, right?
Mhm.
So x equals 6 plus or minus 2 radical 10 over 2. Divide by 2. 3 plus or minus radical 10.
Okay.
You see your mistake?
Yeah.
All right. So again, that's why I say I think completing the square is easier in that case. Yes.
You just simplified it.
Mhm. Or just divide it by 2. All right, over here. In this case, this is an odd number. So completing the square is not the easiest. The reason it's not the easiest because it creates a fraction. Half of 5 is 5 over 2. Then when you square it, it becomes 25 over 4. So everybody see what I'm saying? There's a bunch of fractions involved. So I don't want to do it with a bunch of fractions. All right. So now, again, we're back to the quadratic formula. X equals -b. So that becomes a what? 5 plus or minus the square root. And then what's b squared? 25 minus 4 times 1 times 2. All over 2. So now x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of what? Anybody else get 17? Square root of 17 over 2. Anybody have any issues with that? And that's your answer. Nothing else. It doesn't reduce. You can't break down 17. That was easy. All right, very easy. All right, let's look at 23. Now, 23, you should recognize that has what? 1 square term. So we can do it by taking the square root. All right, isolate the square first by dividing by 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4. All right, so now I have x minus 4 squared equals 8. All right, now we don't say square root of 8 anymore. We just automatically say what? Right, we just say plus or minus 2 radical 2. Come on, that's easy now. And now I do what? Add 4. X equals 4 plus or minus 2 radical 2. Sorry, guys. I'm getting ready to reduce garbage. All right. All right, let's take a look at number 24 now. 24, look at that for me. All right. For question number 24, can you factor that? 16. I don't think so. 4 and 4, right? 2 and 8. Nothing works. All right. Now, because it is a what? Because it is even, we can do completing the square. All right. The leading coefficient is a 1 and the middle term is even. So we can complete the square. All right. So let's do that. So now I have x squared plus 12x equals -16. Half and square, what is that? 36 plus 36 plus 36. Factors now to what? X plus 6 squared equals 20. And now square root x plus 6 equals, right, plus or minus 2 radical 5. And so x is equal to 2 radical 5. All right, anybody have any questions with that? Any issues? All right, let's look at 25. Now, again, to me personally, there is one square term here, so I just like to isolate the square term by adding 9 and then what? Dividing by 4, right? So 4x squared equals 9. X squared equals 9 over 4. Plus or minus what? Right, plus or minus the square root of 9/4. But what's the square root of 9? 3. So we can say plus or minus 3 over what? Plus or minus 3 over 2. Anybody have any issues with that? Yes. Divide both sides by 4. You did it the wrong way. I'm looking at divide both sides by 4. So it's 9 over 4, not 4 over 9. You see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
It's 9 over 4. And then you have the right answer. Okay? Yeah.
Why wouldn't you like
Factor.
do like a little square root thing to like the before x and then 3?
Well, that's not a bad idea. But remember, you have to isolate the square term first.
Okay.
Right? So you got to get rid of the 4. You got to get rid of the 4 first. Yes.
How'd you get the 2 from the 4?
Square root of 9. So technically,
Okay, square root.
right, yeah. Square root 9/4 is the same as the square root of 9 over the square root of 4.
Okay, I got it.
All right, here we go. Same principle here. Adding 8 x minus 2 squared equals what? All right, now we've done the square root of 108 a bunch of times. I'm hoping everybody remembers. That's correct. So it's going to be x minus 2 equals what? That's what we want. Plus or minus 6 radical 3. And then I just do what? Add 2. So x equals 2 plus or minus 6 radical 3. All right, should be easy. Should be easy tomorrow. All right, let's take a look at 27. Now, I definitely don't feel like doing the quadratic formula on this because I don't feel like messing around with 72. So the question is, are there any factors of 72 that make 27? 24 and 3. Exactly. All right. 24 and 3. So if you don't know that, you can do the quadratic formula and then you'll see it's a perfect square. But I would always see when these numbers are big, generally you can factor. All right. So what does that factor to now? X minus 3 and x minus 24. So now you just look at that and just say x equals what? 3, x equals what? 24. Simple as that. Very simple. Anybody have any questions or problems? Come on, it'd be really nice to start out with an A on the first test. That's a lot of relief. All right, a lot of relief. All right, you don't have to worry about digging yourself out of a hole. All right. 28. Now, again, Middle term is even. All right, the leading coefficient is a 1. I think it's easy just to do the completing the square. So move the 1 over. X squared plus 4x equals what? -1. Now what? Plus 4. Remember, you do half and square. I'm listening. Half of 4 squared. Agreed? So now x squared plus 4x plus 4 factors to what? X plus 2 squared equals 3. Everybody good with that? Any questions? And then from there, square root x plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 3. So x equals -2 plus or minus square root of 3. Anybody have any issues with that? Okay. 29. 29 looks like it can factor, but it cannot. Thank you. It cannot factor. All right. Because it would have to be +8. +1 and -8. And that wouldn't multiply to get +8. Right? So it's odd. So we're going to do quadratic formula. X equals 7 plus or minus the square root. 7 squared is 49 minus 4 times 1 times 8 all over 2. Seven plus or minus the square root. What's 49 minus 32? 17. All over what? 2. Anybody have any issues with that? All right, not bad. All right, let's take a look at 30. Well, that was just super easy. Right, so x equals what? Right, plus or minus 3 radical 10. Easy as that. Okay, 31. Okay, now here's, remember what I want you to do. Multiply the first times the last. That's -36. Are there any factors of -36 that equal -5? 9 and 4. Right, so to me, it's much easier to factor. Right, that's how I'd kind of like you to look at it. I definitely don't want to complete the square on this because the leading coefficient is not even a 1. Right? Everybody's good?
Could you complete the square if it's normal? I'm not one.
Yeah, but listen, if I wanted to complete the square on this, I would have to divide everything by 3 first. See how tricky that becomes?
Yeah.
And then this is a fraction. Then you have to take half of 5/3, 5/6, and you square it, 25 over 36, and you create a bunch of fractions. You with me? So it's just really not worth it to complete the square. All right. So from that, we know it now factors. So everybody's putting 2 sets of parentheses. So the only way to make 3x squared is 3x and what? X. Everybody good with this? And then factors of 12. What am I going to use? 4 and 3. Where does the 3 have to go? On the right, and the 4 has to go where? On the left. Now I'm looking here saying 9 and 4. I want it to be -5 So the 9 is going to be, and the 4 is, come on, guys. So now we should be able to solve this mentally right here by just saying x equals what? Solve the first one, it becomes what?
-4/3.
Thank you. -4/3 or 3. Exactly correct. Or 3.
Imagine like
Quadratic.
the formula thing, and I got 5 plus or minus radical 17/6. That like,
That doesn't, it's, you made a mistake somewhere.
okay.
Let's find it. Okay. So again, I don't mind doing that because we have time, right? So we're going to go ahead and do the quadratic formula so I can show you again. It's going to be correct. So x equals 5 plus or minus 5 squared is 25, right? Minus 4 times 3 times -12. Yeah, that's where I made my mistake earlier, right? You got to be real careful when you're plugging in. That's -12, right? Hold on one second. I'm sorry. 6. What? What?
I also made a mistake doing that quadratic formula.
Uh-huh.
We can just go through it.
Yeah. So let's look at that. Does everybody see how it's b
Yeah, I got that.
squared? Right now,
Oh,
4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 12 is 144. 144 and 25 is the square root of 169.
I got it. I accidentally squared the 3 instead of timesing it. Just by
Yep. It's
The bottom.
easy to make the mistakes. You with me now, right? So it would be 5 plus or minus 13/6. Right? 5 plus 13 is 18. 18 divided by 6 is 3. There you have it. 5 minus 13 is -8. -8/6 reduces to -4/3. Right? Same thing. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Either way. All right, you should get the right answer or the same answer. Okay. Now here, 1 square term, subtracting 3, 5x plus 2 squared equals what? 45. Now what? 5x plus 2 equals what? Good job. 5x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3 radical 5. Now what? Minus the 2. 5x equals -2 plus or minus 3 radical 5. Divide by 5. -2 plus or minus. All over 5. Easy. Very easy. Any issues with that? All right, that's pretty important, guys, believe it or not. All right, 2 more to go. All right, isolating the square. So let's just do this together. What do I have to do with the -5? And then what? So everybody should be able to say 34 plus 5 is 39 divided by 3, 13. So everybody writes down 2x minus 1 squared equals 13. Anybody have any issues with that? And now we just do square root, right? So 2x minus 1 equals, yep, plus or minus radical 13. And now what? Add 1, 2x equals 1 plus or minus square root 13. Divide by 2. Anybody have any issues with that? Anybody have any issues? Yes, go. Not subtract, we added, yes, we added 5. You have to isolate the square term, and this is considered the square term. So you isolate, move the numbers away from it. All right, one more. Anybody else so far? All right, 34. Middle term is even,
16.
right? So complete the square. Move the 3. X squared minus 8x equals 3 plus 16 plus 16. So now it factors to what? X minus 4 squared equals 19. Now what? X minus 4 equals plus or minus square root 19. And then add 4. So X equals 4 plus or minus square root 19. One more. All right, anybody have any questions? All right, now hopefully you're hearing me. All right, I there's probably 3 tests. All right. So I understand if there's not very many tests and you just, for whatever reason, decide not to do well tomorrow, it's very difficult to bring your grade up. All right, very difficult. All right. So now what I want you to do is put in a blank copy and just go down and do the odds or go down and do the evens. All right. Don't waste time. Some of you guys, it would be really great for those of you guys who make an A this quarter. You could make a high A this quarter if there aren't as many grades. And that could offset last quarter. All right. Does everybody understand what I'm saying about that? All right. Fewer grades. So if you make A plus, A plus, A plus, now you have an A plus. All right. Which could really help your last quarter grade. All right. So again, please do your studying. All right. I'm not interested in messing around. All right. Grades are too important for you guys. All right. I don't want you sitting here. All right. Doing nothing. All right. If you want to work on something else, I can't force you to do anything. All right. But I can tell you not to mess around. All right. And don't mess with other people who are trying to work and study and do better. All right. The end. Get to work.